Namato Ratanatayasa. May I pay homage to Triple Gem, the Buddha, Dhamma, and the Sangha. My respect goes to my parents and my teachers. Hello, good evening everyone. So today is 19th of January 2020, and this is Ajahn Sujan from Varapunya Meditation Center, Aberdeen, Scotland. Hi, good evening Margaret, good evening Manish, and good evening everyone. Good evening Tan and Chandra, Jenny, and everyone. So we have again another frosty night, a frosty day. So all day it was a frosty and very cold. And I hope that you are well wrapped up in this cold, changing weather. But however, I have noticed that the sun is moving towards the summer. In the past, from the center, we see during the winter, sun rises, and then within a few distance, it just falls. And now the sun rising a little bit far distance. Right. So hopefully the winter passes away, and we also will be able to overcome this fear and anxiety, uncertainty that has created by the coronavirus. As we heard, and we have news, and almost every day, every news are talking about different types of vaccines and distribution and vaccination programs all around the world. So with the sunlights, let's hope that we have normal lives in near future. Right, so we are in this the topic in the Satipatthana Samyutta that I have started, and yesterday I was talking about the two sentences which comes in that Satipatthana Samyutta that are is called Ekayano ayam bhikkhave maggo sattanang visuddhiya. So first the Ekayano maggo and then the sattanang visuddhiya, the two sentences that I explained yesterday. Ekayano maggo basically means the path that leads to nowhere but to the liberation. This path, whoever walks on that path will lead to the liberation, and that's the Ekayano maggo. And then the second Sattanang Visuddhiya that I explained yesterday on that, and that whoever walks on this path will be able to purify their minds and hearts. And today I will be talking on the second benefit of the practice of a meditation, and that's in a Pali. It's called the Sokaparidevanang Samatikkamaya. Yeah, Sokaparidevanang Samatikkamaya. Now, when we talk about the Sokaparideva, it's basically Samatikkamaya means overcoming, and Soka is the sorrow and a sadness, and which will cause the crying and repent, and then Parideva is a lamentation, and this is the Sokaparideva, which again I'm pretty sure that all of us experiences this Soka and Parideva, this sorrow and lamentation. Good evening Yvonne, good evening Swapnil, good evening Emma, and good evening Simone, and everyone. So we are on the Satipatthana Samyutta, and now today I am going to explain on the second benefit of the practice of a mindfulness, and that is the Sokaparideva. Sokaparideva, the translation is the sorrow and lamentation, and Samatika Maya, basically overcoming or calming it down. And now here I have stories that I come across, few actually, but one of them is very relevant to this particular topic. A few years ago, I met a man who lost his son on a motorbike crash. And this man, initially, he was not that wealthy, and he had only one son, and they were kind of a middle-class family. All the family, this both husband and wife, go to work, and then supporting this young boy, the only child. And it happened that somehow this family acquired a large lump sum of money, and which again, was like a sudden change in their life. And because of that change, and they moved on to selling the old house and moved to the new house. In the meanwhile, his boy, or his son, was about 17, 18 years old, and just about to complete his school's A-level school examination, and it happened that he wanted to have a decent motorbike. So he went on taking the exams on a motorbike, and after he passed the motorbike tests, his father bought him a decent motorbike for his birthday present. And it happened that in one of the summers, he went on alone on a bike, and one of the corners, he was hit by another lorry, and then died on the spot, which has caused his father a lot of sorrow and a lot of sadness and a lot of lamentation. There's non-stop crying and non-stop kind of lamenting on that. So it was a deep bereavement. It even happened that his son's room was closed for good for many months, and he even didn't dare to look at his son's room, and no one was allowed to look at his room. So it went on for over a year, and then it happened that I came across with this story and had a discussion, and then had a friendly chat, and with that conversation and a chat helped him to accept that his son has passed away, and now it's time to move on. So that is one story that is quite relevant to this particular second benefit of the practice of a meditation, and that is the overcoming the sorrow and lamentation. And here, not only the story, I do believe that we have plenty of stories around in our communities, that every one of us or having experienced such tragedies and loss of our loved ones, and longing to that, and then a feeling of a sorrow and a lamenting or sadness, basically deep bereavement. And here, the practice of a mindfulness meditation is basically one of the benefits that helps us to recognize that the reality of reality of a person who passed away. And here, what happens is that when we are not able to recognize these loss, we normally have tendencies to longing on to someone who we love, and that's simply to entertain or to feel the pleasure or please our senses. Every time when we think of that person, our eyes fill up with cries, or our own hearts beats and feel of a lonely and feel of a numbness, and longing for that person to be with us. And then this brings the cry and a sadness. Like, this is not just a story of someone who passed away, but even this we can link with someone who lived together, and then somehow with some reasons we have to depart or separate together, and then that also brings sadness and sorrow as well. That I have done so much for you, and we have been doing so much together, and suddenly it comes to the end of this relationship, and then that also brings the sorrow and the sadness too. And that's simply because the thought of wanting to be, and we think of those moments that we had a time together happily, and then with this our eyes will have this desire to have that person close to us, or want to hear their voices, or want to smell their scents, or want to have like hugs and holding the hands. Now this particular holding the hands and huggings, now we know that since the lockdown of the COVID-19, many people missed this simple gesture of huggings and holding the hands. Whereas in the past, people reluctant to even to give hugs or holding the hands, which was free. And now, ever since the COVID-19, we are not allowed to go close, and which has caused a significant anxiety or also stress of not able to hug their relatives. Particularly, I would say the stories that I have heard and read from the news, that all the grandparents feel really missing, not able to give hugs to their own grandchild and grandchildren. And so this is again simply this aroused this sadness and sorrow, not able to give hugs and holding the hands of one who we really love. So that's why the practice of a meditation helps simply to overcome these desires and these moments of emotions and feelings whenever it arises in our mind. And then once it arises in our mind, rather than we are carried away by those emotions and feelings, we will be receiving it, accepting those moments of emotions and sadness and sorrows as one kind of feelings, and accepting it as the moment of arising, and then within a few moments or it will be going to change. So nothing can last for long. And in this case again, there is a story from the scripture. This story is about a lady called patacara, and which is again, many people would normally tell this story in relation to overcome the sorrow and lamentation. The patacara was a wealthy daughter, and she lived in a mansion, and it happened that she was so beautiful she wasn't allowed to meet or associate with other men in the village or in the town. And it happened that there was one servant who was a gentleman. He normally comes to serve her in her mansion. And because she never had any contact or communication with any men, she developed the affection towards this man, and then finally she decided to run away with him. And now he, being a servant, he didn't want to stay in the same town, so they ran away to another city. And it happened that they have to cross the mountains and forests for a couple of days in order to reach to another town. And they lived together in a small village, working and living like just a farm in a decent small family. And it happened that over the period of a time, she became pregnant, and having known the status of their family, their living standard wasn't good, in a poor state, she wanted to go back to her maternal house, where she could feel that they could give her family could give her decent care while she is giving a birth. But her husband wasn't convinced, and obviously it's understandable, because he was a servant and he simply married the daughter and ran away, so he didn't want to go back. But it happened that she ran away in the middle of the jungle. Before arriving her mother's house, she gave a birth, and her husband followed and found she was giving a birth to her child. And after giving birth, rather than going to the maternal house, they came back to their own house. And it happened a couple of years later again. She was pregnant and about to have a second child. When she was about to have a second child, and the same event repeated, that she wanted to go back to her mother's house so that she could get the good care. And then again, husband didn't agreed, didn't convince. But however, one day she again ran away from the house, hoping that she could get to her mother's house. And it happened a similar way, that on the way in the forest, it was delivery time, and she gave a birth. And her husband also chased, and followed, and found that she was giving a birth. And the same time, the story says it was a heavy rain coming down, and because of the heavy rain, they couldn't find any shelter, so her husband went to collect somewhere, some dry leaves and dry branches, so that he could set up a fire to warm this new baby in one of the shelters. And it happened that when he went to search for the dry materials, when he was searching, there was a snake, and a poisonous snake bit him, and then because of the poison, he died on the spot. Whereas the patacara, she was waiting for her husband to return under that shed, but never returned, and it was early morning now. So holding two babies, she went on searching her husband, and found that he already died by the poisonous snake. And with that, she decides that rather than going back to her house, she decides to go to her mother's house so that she could get some and good care. And it happened when she was walking along with her two boys, two child, and they have to cross a river. And this river, due to the last night's heavy rain, was flooded. Now, she didn't have the energy to hold these two babies and cross this river. So she put the old boy on one bank, and then she crossed with one child, and then she put one child on another bank of the river, and she was returning back to get another child. And it happened that when she arrived in the middle of the river, one of the barge, the eagle came, and then probably this eagle thought this newborn baby is like a piece of meat. So this eagle roam around and just about to get this baby, and that time she knew that this eagle is about to get her baby, so screamed. When she screamed in the middle of the while she was in the middle of the river, just to to chase away the eagle, it didn't happen. So eagle just grabbed her newborn baby and went away. And while another baby who was sitting waiting her mom to come and collect, he thought that mom is calling him, so he crawled and then jumped into the river. And it happened that this river took this her next child away, took away. And she didn't have anything to do, and she already lost, and she felt very sad and very, saddened. And then she walked with a great grievance towards her mother's house, mother's town. And on the way, she met one traveler and asked that, have you heard that where is my parents? And this, so because her parents were very wealthy and well known, everybody knows about her families. So this traveler told her that, milady, it is sad to say that last night's flood has taken this whole town, flooded, and including so-called your family also flooded, and whole family died with the flood. And suddenly she lost her mind, and she become fainted, and then she walked she walked without any clothes, since all her mind was just thinking that my husband lost due to the snake bite, and my two sons, I lost two sons, one took away by the eagle, another took away by the river, and my family all died by the flood. So she was like chanting these again and again, and with this sorrow, she even didn't realize that her body hasn't got any clothes left. And this sadness continues, and then it happened that one day, when she was wandering around and crying out with those words, she came across with the Buddha. And here, when Buddha was giving the story says that the Buddha was giving a talk, and at that time when he was giving a talk, she happened to come across, and people began to tell her off that go away. And then Buddha, having seen her capability of recovery, and the Buddha simply told her, sister, be mindful, come here. And then first the Buddha asked an audience to give her a cloth to cover her body, and then second he said, sister, be mindful, come here. And this kind words, sister, be mindful, help her to gain the awareness that which state she was in. And then because of this mindfulness, and gradually she gained the consciousness and come back to the moment here and now. And with this, she was able to, and gradually, later on, she became a nun and meditated, and she was contemplating on the fire, And as she was contemplating on a fire, Buddha, realizing her mental state, she said that look at the fire, the flames that is just rising and vanishing. It's never been the same. It always changes. The fire changes all the time. So does our emotions and feelings. The one who knows this change, she or he will not be attached to any feelings and any loss and any grievance. And with this, she became an enlightened person. Further on, and the Buddha also said, after her enlightenment, said that living a life without knowing the reality for 100 years is not worth than living a one day knowing the reality. So that's why the practice of mindfulness meditation helps us to realize that what type of sorrow, what type of a lamentation we are going through. And then with this, the moment when we become aware and conscious, then that moment we will be able to overcome this sadness and sorrow and lamentation. So that's why this is the second benefit of a practice of a mindfulness meditation, that once we are diligently practicing in accordance with the four foundations of a mindfulness, then definitely we will be able to overcome our sadness and our sadness and lamentations that we experience through our loss or not happening as we desire to be. So this is the second benefit. I end here for tonight. Thank you everyone for listening, and we will continue following days on other benefits, and we'll continue on that on this discourse to discuss on. So thank you everyone, and in a few moments time we're going to have evening chanting and guided meditation. You're all welcome to join with us. Until then, good night, and may the Buddha Dhamma Sangha bless you. Thank you. Satu.